to look back in time at the very smallest of these babies, those born weighing less than half a kilogram at birth, to try and get some better information for parents and for clinicians to help guide these very difficult decisions.
So, Susie, I'll bring you in here. This research that Dr. Wilkinson has released, how do you think it will help parents in what is an ethical and emotional minefield in a turbulent time in their lives?
Well, I think it's going to help parents give a little bit more certainty in terms of what the outcomes might be. I mean, these are parents who quite often have to make these decisions in very tight time frames. And I spoke to a woman for the Herald Sun, she's on the front page of the Herald Sun today. She had 15 minutes. She was basically herself bleeding to death in the labour ward. And she was told that she had to decide in a 15-minute period whether her baby, who was born at 23 weeks, weighing 500 grams, these babies are so tiny that you can shine a torch through them and see their organs. And so she had to decide whether they were going to give life-saving resuscitation or let the baby die naturally. And what Dr. Wilkinson's research shows is that babies born at that point, 500 grams, 2 punnets of strawberries, and at 22, 23 weeks, don't survive. And in his 6-year study, they looked at 36 babies in this category. Not one of them survived, only one of them survived with a severe disability.
Carol, I'll bring you in here. You're the director of Life's Little Treasures Foundation, and you deal with helping severely disabled children. We read so much when you're pregnant or someone you know is pregnant, what's going on with the baby at 20 weeks? They might be growing fingernails, they might be growing cartilage. We don't have a lot of information out there on the eventuation that your baby might be, in fact, born at 22, 23 weeks. Do you think more education needs to be out there for parents to be?
I think it's just important that parents are made aware that not all babies end up being born healthy at full term, that there could be chances of early birth. And if their doctors or their obstetricians, or if they're in that high risk category, I think they should be given that information so that if that situation happens, then they're well armed. And it's not just, and this continuation of education needs to continue once the baby's born as well, because we work with so many families who have had babies very early, from 23, 24 weeks onwards, who have had outcomes, who have had better outcomes, and that's been because they have been supported emotionally and practically so that they can be advocates for these babies, so they can have the best outcomes possible. And that's what our biggest thing is making sure that parents are educated and armed so that they can make the best decisions for their babies.
So, Dr. Wilkinson, will it always ultimately be the parent's decision to decide on whether or not the premature baby's life is fought for or not?
We talk with parents and we try to work out what's important for them. Some babies, unfortunately, are so small and so premature that despite anything that we can do, we can't save them. And in those circumstances, doctors will think very hard about whether it's appropriate to do things that may harm or hurt the baby and yet cannot help them. There are some very premature babies whose chances are better, whose chance of surviving is better than 50-50 of surviving long-term without serious problems. And in those situations, doctors would be very strongly encouraging full intensive care.
Okay. All right, I'm afraid we are going to have to leave it there, but what is a very contentious and emotional issue, Dr. Dominic Wilkinson, Parul Shah and Susie O'Brien, thank you very much for joining us today on Meet the Press. Well, coming